We are here for the topic how Hybr solves prominent challenges of hybrid cloud solutions. I'm Divyesh. I'm a software development engineer working with CloudAsset for the past 3 years. I'm part of core hybrid team. We will have a quick look of who we are before going into the topic. CloudAsset is an independent software vendor and a Microsoft Gold partner based out of Redmond. We have our R&D in the southern part of India, Coimbatore. We are a solution integrator providing software and services in the private hybrid cloud, hosted cloud, and the public cloud space. We have our customers across the globe over 30 plus countries today, including Fortune 100 customers in the US. Agenda. We will talk shortly about the business benefits of multi-cloud and their challenges. After that, we will see how Hybr acts as a single pane of glass for the business to utilize the resources efficiently. Benefits. Expand or scale down the resources based on the demand and the cost. CapEx versus OpEx. Business gets to choose in purchasing hardware versus utilizing cost resources. This choice enables agility that helps business grow based on the market demands. Company also wanted to use numerous vendors so that were not vulnerable to vendor lock-in. Due to the multi-cloud benefit, one can use the Azure App Service for the application hosting and AWS or on-prem database for the speed of security. Data sovereignty. Hybrid cloud solutions are helping to solve data sovereignty challenges all around the world. Customers are able to get the speed and agility of the cloud with the security and performance of an on-premise solution. Challenges. Unique portal. One of the greatest benefit of multi-cloud also presents one of its greatest challenges. Multi-cloud allows organization to deploy the environment for each and every critical business application, but in doing so adds several layers of management complexity. Each vendor deployment comes with its own unique portal and process that companies needs to manage. Consider that even something as seamlessly simple as identity and access management can be complicated if different providers demand different password complexities or authentication measures. Cloud sprawl. Multi-cloud environments make it easier than ever to lose track of which application are running where and how much this costs you day by day, which leads to cloud waste. Cost clarity. Mastering multi-cloud economics is perhaps the greatest challenges of all. Each platform has its own set of variables that make optimization a full-time job. Billing system, pricing model, instance or VM size differences, data egress fees, etc. The multi-cloud sprawl of billing itself can induce budgeting nightmare for the IT management. Integration challenges. Challenges can include traversing cloud and cloud security models, addressing data sovereignty and privacy requirements. Also choosing the right integration strategy to meet the diversity of the environment and requirement all play into these challenges in setting up the hybrid cloud challenges. Hybr. Hybr is a cross-cloud integration platform which has support for different service providers like vCenter, SPF, Azure, AWS, GCP, and OpenStack. And we have also the backup providers like Veeam and Commvault, using which we will be able to take backup of the workloads and restore them whenever it's needed. Billing services in Hybr is used to aggregate the usage data from different service providers, and based on the pricing profile, the cost will be calculated and the tenant users will be able to pay the bill using the payment gateways in Hybr like PayPal, CyberSource, and Stripe. Admin users has the full control over the resources like user quota management, permissions, and connections, using which the tenant will be able to create the virtual machine resources. Admin user will be able to set the policies like all the virtual machines needs to be turned off or turned on at a particular interval of time, and can also track audit the tenant users operations. Admin can able to workflow capability in Hybr. So whenever tenant tries to create a new resource, admin or the another user needs to approve the request in order to make the deployment. Marketplace and onboarding. Admin user can publish their own custom service with the help of service catalog, and the Microsoft partners can resell the Microsoft products using Hybr. We also support two different authentication providers like Azure Active Directory and ADFS. So whenever an organization is onboarded in Hybr, the existing users can onboard themselves into the Hybr environment. Managed services. Cloud Asset provides 24 cross 7 Tier 1 and Tier 2 technical support, cloud architecture, and design guidance support as well. We will see a quick demo of Hybr in action. So this is our Hybr portal. In Hybr, we have two different experience. One is Hybr Admin and another one is Hybr Tenant. Hybr Admin has the responsibility to establish the connection from Hybr to the different service providers like the vCenter server, SPF server, or Azure and AWS subscriptions. And after establishing the connection, he will be also limit the tenant capabilities like setting the quota or restricting the user permissions. So these are the certain ability of Hybr Admin. And using the permissions and the quotas that is leveraged by the admin, the tenant users will be able to manage or create the virtual machine resources. So we will quickly try to create or establish the connection from Hybr to one of our SPF server. So basically, in order to establish the connection, we will require some of the server informations like the server URL, username, and password. And in Hybr, we support two different authentication or SPF providers like SPF 2012, 2016, and 2019. And after we giving the SPF provider informations, it will automatically fetch the VMM server and the VMM cloud that resides in that particular SPF server. So basically, we are establishing the connection to this particular VMM cloud. So whenever a tenant user tries to create a new virtual machine resource, the resource will create in that particular VMM cloud. And after we establish the connection, the next thing we need to create is the template. Template is nothing but the configuration file that we required in order to create a new virtual machine resource. Basically, it consists of the parameters that we required for creating a virtual machine resource, like the OS type, whether it's a Windows or Linux. And in the Windows template, we can have numerous templates, which will be like 2012 R2 or 2016. Even we can embed our own softwares into the machine and we can convert that to a template. Some of the other parameters in the template that can be configured, like the network and the subnetwork name and the user informations for this particular virtual machine resource. As an admin user, we can also configure that this particular parameter can be configured or altered by the tenant user when he tries to create a new virtual machine resource. If he wants to, if he wants the tenant user to alter these parameters, he can make this a checkbox. So this parameter will be available at the deployment time. So the tenant user will be able to make the changes for the deployment. Next one is the custom commands. Custom commands is nothing but the custom partial script that can be injected against a virtual machine resource or against a server. So by a default, Hybr provides three different custom commands like add, delete, and expand disk. As an admin user, I can also inject my own partial script, so that can be leveraged by the tenant or the admin user. Next is the networks. networks. In SPF, we can create n number of networks. That networks can be onboarded into the Hybr environment. So whenever a tenant user needs to create a new virtual machine, he can use any one of the networks that are leveraged or that are given permissions by the admin user for that particular tenant. Policies. Policies are nothing but the scheduled power operations against all the virtual machines in this particular connection. So say I have a scenario like I need to turn off all my virtual machines at the end of my day. So I need to create a scheduled VM power operation policy, which is a daily schedule, and I need to turn off at 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. and the operation is turn off. Likewise, I can create a number of policies against my connection. And in Hybr, we have one another capability to monitor the VM resources. So I need to turn off the individual virtual machines whenever it's idle for 1 hour or 2 hours. So that's possible. So next thing we are going to see is the plans. As we saw earlier, the admin can restrict the user's permissions and the quota limit. So basically, admin user will create a plan for each tenant, or he can use a single plan for multiple tenant users. In plan, we will be configuring which connection will be available for that particular tenant user. Say we have a scenario like I have 2 tenant users, and I have different connections in SPF, vCenter, AWS, and Azure. And for a particular tenant user, I need to give the connection only for the SPF and the vCenter, which is our on-prem solution. And for the another tenant user, I need to provide the Azure and AWS solutions. So in that case, I need to create 2 plans and provide the respective connection for each plan, which can be associated to the respective tenant users. Even at the template level, we can restrict the user's permissions. Say I have 10 templates and I want to provide only few templates for a particular tenant user. Say I have a Oracle SQL database installed template and Visual Studio installed template. So I need to provide only Visual Studio template for a particular tenant user, which resides in the same connection as that of Oracle template. So we can make those a restriction at the plan level. Subscription quota. We can also restrict the tenant's quota, like he will be able to create only 100 cores, 100,000 MB of memory or 1000 GB of storage. We can make those limitations so the tenant users will be able to create resources only at that limit. We can also restrict the tenant operations. The next we are going to see is how we can create a new company and how we can be able to onboard a number of tenant users for a particular tenant company. So as an admin user, I will be able to list all the companies that have already onboarded in my Hybr environment. So we will try to quickly edit a company. In Hybr, we have 2 different authentication providers like Azure Active Directory and ADFS. So basically, a company needs an identity provider in either of the two, whether it can be in AAD or ADFS. So admin can choose the identity provider, and he needs to provide the issuer URL and the Hybr admin tenant admin account. So those are the pretty much details we require in order to create a new tenant company. After we create the tenant company, we will be able to create a number of users for a particular tenant company. There can be a user that can associate it with multiple tenant companies in Hybr. So we need to fill some of the PI information of the tenant user, and this information can also be filled at the tenant side. So he can also onboard himself through a self-sign-in portal. Even though if he register himself, the admin needs to review his registration form, and based on that, he can decide whether to approve or reject that particular tenant user. So only on approval, the tenant user will be able to use or create resources. This is our Hybr tenant experience. This is the virtual machine tab. Here, he will be able to list or manage all his virtual machine resources. Now we try to a new virtual machine resource. Here is all the connection that this particular tenant user has. Basically, this can be configured at the plan level. So once we have choose the connection, it lists or brings all the template that that are in that particular connection. So after choosing the template, we will be able to provide the VM name and the compute instance size. We can choose any of the size listed over here. Even when we try to create a new virtual machine with a different compute instance size, even after it is created, we will be able to change the compute instance size at the runtime. As workflow is not enabled for this tenant user, the virtual machine resource will be automatically deployed. If the workflow is enabled at the admin, the tenant user needs to get the approval from the admin user. Basically, the admin user can approve the request through email or through Hybr portal. Tenant user can see the list of operations or deployment jobs for his request. So basically it's deployed. This is the operations tab. Here he can be able to see the list of operations that will undergo in order to create his own virtual machine resource. As an admin, he can restrict whether this particular tab can be visible for the tenant user or not. He can also inject his own custom partial script as a deployment operation. Say he has a scenario like he needs to receive an email whenever a new virtual machine is created. He can write his own partial script, and that can be injected as a deployment operation. In the list of virtual machines, the tenant user will be able to do some of the like he will be able to console connect it, he will be able to download the RDP file for the virtual machine, and he will be able to connect it, and he can also do the power operations, and he can execute the commands. This is the dashboard tab for one of my virtual machine resource. Here he will be able to see the live metrics of this particular virtual machine resource, how much memory or how much CPU is used in my past interval of time. He can also see the quick glance of some of the metrics of my virtual machine resource, like the operating system or the size or the subscription under which I have created this resource. And in the graphical view, he can see how much core has been assigned to him in that particular plan, and how much core he has used in the whole subscription, or how much core he has utilized for this particular virtual machine resource. Similarly for the memory and storage as well. Next is the virtual networks. Here he will be able to create a new virtual network for any of one of his connection. Resource template is nothing but the bulk VM provisioning option. As a tenant user, say I have a scenario like I need to deploy my two VMs with different configuration in bulk quantity. I need to get 10 VMs for a different configuration. Then he can choose this resource template, in which in this particular resource template, he has one template. So he can choose the competence and size for the particular resource, and he can specify the count, say 10. So the 10 virtual machine will be deployed at one shot. This is the virtual machine management capability in Hybr. So the next thing we can see is the billing and service catalog. And before that, if you have any questions or queries, feel free to ping in the chat window. Service catalog is nothing but the services that can be published by the admin user. As an admin, I can publish my own custom services in Hybr. So whenever tenant user wants to purchase a service catalog, automatically the operations will be carried out. Here I have published vCenter template as one of my service catalog. And we can also enable the workflow capability for each of the services. So whenever a tenant user tries to create or purchase this service, the workflow will be enabled. So only on the approval by the admin, the resource will be deployed to the tenant user. Similarly, he can see the list of service catalog that are published by the admin user in my tenant experience. Only the published service catalogs will be available. So he can just purchase it whenever he requires that particular service. So the next thing we are going to see is the billing. So in Hybr, we have this billing capability where it collects the usage data from different service providers like Azure or WAP or Azure Stack, AWS. And based on the usage data it's collected, it aggregates, and based on the pricing profile that is configured by the administrator, the bill for the individual tenant users will be calculated. So this is the high level dashboard tab for the admin. So here he will be able to see the list of his tenant users subscription and the total amount from all the tenant users and monthly trend graph all his subscription for a particular month. And then next is the pricing profiles. Pricing profile is nothing but the pricing model for each of the line items for any of the resources. For a particular virtual machine resource, we have different metrics to compute the cost. Say it can be a CPU core or memory or storage. So based on the line item using which I need to compute the cost, I can define my pricing model. So here I have chosen the CPU core as one of my pricing model. Here for one particular core of usage, particular month, I can cost my tenant users $200 for a month. And also customize our own formula based like only when the virtual machine is turned on, I need to compute the cost. We can customize our formula based on our needs. We can also set the minimum monthly fee or the markup percentage. So minimum monthly fee is nothing but whenever he tries to use a resource through Hybr, he needs to pay the fixed fee for a particular month. With that if it's admin's choice. Similarly, we can create a number of line items and we can quote amount for each of the line item. History. In History tab, admin will be able to see all his tenant users, and related to it, he can see how much subscription for each of the tenant user and how much cost it's incurring for that particular tenant user. He can download it in the CSV format. Invoices will be generated a third of each month. So on invoice generation, it will be automatically mailed for the admin and the respective tenant users. We can also download the invoice as a PDF format in the admin side. Similarly, in tenant experience, we have this billing tab. Here he can see the graphical view of how much cost it's incurred for this particular subscription. He can also see the trend or history graph for all the subscription in the past months. Similar to the admin experience, tenant can also see the history for each of the month, how much cost it's incurred, and he will be also download it in the CSV format. And invoices too. He can also see the payment status for each of the invoices under each of his subscriptions. So he can download the invoices and he can see the line items. Like under which line item I have cost amount of subscription. Next is the cloud services. If you are a Microsoft partner who wants to resell the Microsoft products, then Hybr has the capability to list all your Microsoft products, and the tenant users will be able to purchase it. And even you can cost the user based on their purchase. These are some of the CSP admin account setting configuration in Hybr. So as soon as the CSP account is configured, it will automatically fetch the list of customers and the customer profiles. Basically, we will be able to onboard the existing resources in Hybr as soon as the admin account is configured in Hybr. Similarly, we see the tenant experience from the CSP point of view. So this is the cloud services tab at the tenant experience. Here he will be able to see the list of Microsoft products that are available by the particular admin user. He can also be able to purchase the add-ons for each one of subscriptions. He can basically purchase whether it's a license-based or usage-based offer. Based on the offer type, whether it's a license-based, then the cost will be computed based on that. Whether it's an usage-based, we will be able to query the CSP usage records, and based on the usage, the cost will be calculated. And in the subscriptions tab, for this particular tenant user, he will be able to see the list of subscriptions he has purchased, and whether it needs to be active or suspended, he can make those changes. He can also increase the quantity of his subscription, and he will be able to purchase the add-ons for each of his subscription. He can also be able to see his cost or spend rate for each of the month. So I'm pretty much done with the demo and the webinar. So if you have any questions, we can go ahead at it now. Any questions, guys? This is the contact information. If you are willing to take a POC or another demo session, please feel free to contact this email address info@cloudasset.com. We will be able to deploy the Hybr environment through SaaS or on-premise, so you can have your hands-on in the product. Thank you.